From an unfamiliar Instagram account, a chilling message popped up on my phone, making my heart lurch. Camilla J23. He's about to leave you and take all the money. Here's what you need to know. I clutched my phone, a cold dread seeping into my chest. But instead of opening it immediately, my gaze drifted to our wedding photos on the wall. Brandon, my husband, beamed back at me, his arm wrapped lovingly around my shoulder. 14 years of marriage, 14 years of standing by him, supporting his every climb up the ladder, believing in the vows we'd exchanged. I took a deep, shaky breath, forcing myself to calm down. My fingers, trembling slightly, moved to my laptop. 3 months earlier, I'd quietly opened a separate bank account, transferring small amounts from our joint funds. It wasn't out of greed. My gut simply screamed that something was terribly wrong with Brandon's recent erratic spending. Now, seeing the healthy balance in my private account, a surge of grim satisfaction washed over me. Everything was in place. Only then did I dare to open that ominous message. 4 photos flashed onto the screen, each one a dagger to my heart. There was Brandon, the man I'd loved more than life itself, wrapped around a young woman with sleek black hair and sharp predatory features. They were in a hotel room, one I recognized instantly, the presidential suite at the Grand Oak Ridge, the very place he'd promised to take me for our 15th anniversary. Tears didn't come. Instead, a cold, deep anger spread through me, a burning inferno beneath a calm exterior. The message came with a taunting line. He doesn't love you anymore. We're starting fresh together with the money he saved. You should accept the truth soon. I lowered the phone, my hands clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. All those sacrifices, the sleepless nights, helping Brandon review legal documents. The times I bit my tongue when he missed important family moments for work. It all felt like a cruel joke, a testament to my own foolishness. Yet in that moment, something within me awakened. A strong, resilient part I had long suppressed beneath the facade of a devoted wife. I reopened my bank account, double-checking, ensuring every last penny was transferred out of the accounts Brandon still controlled. The money I had helped him build was now safely beyond the reach of a traitor. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows and rustling the curtains, filling the room with the ominous breath of a coming storm. I knew with an unsettling certainty that the storm had begun, but this time I wouldn't cower. I wouldn't just endure. I would face it head-on, and Brandon would pay the price for his carefully laid plans. The game has started, Brandon, I whispered, my eyes fixed on the screen, where every transaction he once thought hidden was now meticulously laid bare under my complete control. Since that fateful afternoon, my senses had sharpened every detail, becoming a potential clue. I began to see Brandon through a new, chilling lens. His late nights, once attributed to demanding cases, now carried the faint, unfamiliar scent of a sweet, heady perfume on his collar. Definitely not his usual car freshener or office air. It was the fragrance of a woman he actually embraced, unlike the distant, perfunctory pecks he now offered me at the door. Those weekend conferences became increasingly frequent and suspiciously never had a specific location. One evening, feigning casual curiosity, I asked, "Where's the conference this time, honey? Maybe I can help you prepare something in advance." Brandon hesitated, a fleeting flicker of unease in his eyes before he brushed it off. "Oh, just a small hotel. Nothing for you to worry about, darling." I simply nodded my face, betraying none of the calculated resolve simmering beneath the surface. That very night, once Brandon was sound asleep beside me, I opened my laptop and began my true work. Years of meticulously accounting for major projects had honed my skills, making me precise down to the last figure. Now that precision became my weapon. I created a new spreadsheet innocuously named Family, so no one would suspect if they stumbled upon it. In it, I recorded every one of Brandon's expenses. I could verify credit card charges, cash withdrawals, bank transactions. At first, it was small sums, $300 at an upscale restaurant I'd never been invited to, $450 at a jewelry store where I'd never received a gift. But then the amount swelled $1,200 at the Madison Hotel, $1,700 in unexplained cash withdrawals, all within 2 short weeks. One night, when Brandon claimed he had to stay late at the office to prepare for an important case, I quietly drove to his building. The towering structure was almost entirely dark, save for a few lights on the lower floors where the security guards were stationed. Brandon's car was conspicuously absent from the parking lot. I sat there in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Back home, I didn't confront him. Instead, I continued my relentless recording, adding new damning evidence to the spreadsheet. I began accessing Brandon's credit card history, an easy task given that I had handled our family's billing and payments for years. Beneath the polished exterior of a successful, devoted husband was a clear, undeniable trail of transactions that only a fool would think could escape my noticed dinners for 2 at Austin's most luxurious sports rooms at high-end hotels. right in the city, increasingly large and frequent cash expenses. The initial doubt had now solidified into an undeniable, agonizing truth. But I refused to act rashly. Brandon was a seasoned attorney. I knew he'd twist things, painting me as a paranoid, hysterical wife if I made a single misstep. So quietly, meticulously, I continued to gather evidence. Each night after he slept, I printed statements, took photos of suspicious transactions, and stored them on a separate hard drive hidden deep within a secret compartment of our bookshelf. Every trace of his betrayal was carefully collected, ready for the day the truth would be laid bare. There was a time I pretended to be concerned, asking, "Have you been feeling stressed lately?" "Honey, I've noticed you seem to have trouble sleeping and you seem a little tense." Brandon forced a smile, his eyes darting away from mine. "It's just work, sweetheart. Don't worry, I can handle everything." That night, I watched him drift into sleep, wondering if my image ever crossed his mind anymore, or if I was simply a fading memory. Day by day, I peeled back Brandon's curtain of secrets, piece by painstaking piece. I was no longer the passive wife standing on the sidelines of my own life. I was the one meticulously holding every link, every shred of evidence, every truth Brandon thought he could hide forever. And I swore to myself that when the puzzle was complete, I would be the one to unmask the traitor beneath the blinding light of justice, stripping away the honor he once claimed so proudly. That night, when everything in the house had gone quiet, I sat alone in my home office, the cold glow of the laptop screen casting an eerie light over my tense face. Weeks of silent investigation had led me to a discovery far worse than I ever dared imagine. Brandon hadn't just betrayed me with his heart, he had betrayed his professional conscience as well. As I reviewed his transactions, I spotted strange transfers from client funds under Brandon's management service fees that didn't exist in any case file transactions disguised with cryptic codes. But to me, someone intimately familiar with every number and accounting symbol, they stood out as clear as day. Brandon had been quietly siphoning client money into a private account, preparing for what he believed was the perfect plan to run away with that young woman, shedding all responsibility and leaving me with the desolate ashes of what he had destroyed. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and pushed down the rising tide of fury. This wasn't the time for emotion. This was the time to do what I did best: make a plan. That very night, I began backing up every single bit of evidence. I downloaded every statement, every digital receipt, the emails I had secretly accessed from the laptop Brandon often left on his desk. Everything was meticulously stored on a separate hard drive and uploaded to a secure cloud storage he knew nothing about. Every piece of evidence, every trace of his deceit was carefully organized, labeled, and timestamped, just as I had once helped him manage his client files. I even set up a financial alert system. As an accountant, I knew that major banks offered alert services for suspicious transactions. I leveraged old connections in the industry, quietly asking a trusted friend, Ethan, a senior account manager at a prominent bank, to set up secret alerts. Any transaction from Brandon's client funds over a certain amount would immediately be flagged to me. Ethan didn't ask many questions. He just looked at me with worried eyes and nodded. "Paisley, I hope you know what you're doing." I gave a soft, confident smile. "Trust me, I do." In the days that followed, I showed no outward sign of change. I still made Brandon breakfast, still asked him about his work with what sounded like genuine concern, still played the attentive wife he expected to see. But each night after the bedroom light went out, I sat at my desk, perfecting the case file I was preparing with more care than anything before. I gathered documents, compared figures, created charts to illustrate the glaring irregularities in his transactions. This was no longer the heartbreak of a betrayed wife. It was the meticulous mission of a woman claiming justice for herself. One day while tidying up, I found a crumpled note in the pocket of Brandon's suit jacket. "Meet Alex. Complete transfer. Tickets Costa Rica confirmed." My heart turned to ice. It wasn't just an affair, not just financial betrayal. Brandon had truly planned to vanish from my life, leaving me with the burden and the shame. I no longer felt confusion. All that remained was a cold, steely determination. Inside, the pain had quieted, making room for a complete, unyielding plan. The night before the lavish party Brandon was so eager to host for his major client, the event he surely believed would be his perfect performance before disappearing. I sat in front of my laptop, my finger hovering over the enter key. With a single press, every piece of evidence I had gathered would be sent simultaneously to the board of directors at Brandon's law firm, to the partners he was deceiving, and to the Financial Regulatory Authority. I looked up at the mirror, meeting the gaze of the woman looking back, calm, resolute eyes. I was no longer the woman who once wept silently in the night upon discovering the brutal truth. I was the woman ready to close an old chapter and write a new one with my own hands, driven by the mind that had been underestimated for too long. "All right, Brandon," I whispered, a ghost of a smile touching my lips. "The game you thought you controlled is over." That night, the party Brandon had so eagerly prepared finally unfolded at the Aurora Heights Club, one of the most luxurious venues in downtown Austin, where only elite clients could reserve tables in the exclusive private section. The air was crisp, a light breeze stirring the rows of lanterns lining the path to the grand hall, scattering the white flowers I had personally chosen. Brandon entered the room in a perfectly tailored suit, a confident, self-satisfied smile on his lips. He had no idea that tonight would not be the night of triumph he imagined, but the night he would spectacularly collapse on the very stage he had so painstakingly built. I remained the picture of the gentle, supportive wife at his side, adjusting his collar before we greeted each guest. "Thank you, Paisley. Tonight will change everything," he whispered into my ear, his eyes alight with the excitement of someone who believed he had covered every single escape route. I simply smiled, replying softly, "I'm sure it will." The party began enveloped in an atmosphere of elegance and warmth. Candlelight glimmered over glasses of fine wine and soft jazz, mingled with the laughter and conversation of esteemed clients and guests. I quietly observed Brandon as he moved between tables, shaking hands, raising toasts, his eyes occasionally flicking toward the phone hidden in his jacket pocket. No doubt checking for updates on the substantial transfer he planned to trigger after the event. I had arranged everything flawlessly, from the exquisite menu featuring perfectly grilled prime beef to the delicate dessert of chocolate mousse topped with bright red berries. Every detail of that night was so meticulously perfect that no one could have suspected the carefully concealed plan for retribution I held hidden behind my serene smile. The gentle clink of cutlery against plates echoed rhythmically as the guests enjoyed the main course, when suddenly the banquet hall doors swung open with a dramatic creak. All eyes turned toward the entrance as a woman stormed in, disheveled, yet provocatively dressed in a tight red dress, her hair a tangled mess, eyes blazing with fury and panic. It was Camilla, the one I had quietly prepared to appear at just this moment. "Brandon, you think you can hide from me? You won't answer my messages? Won't pick up my calls? Where's the money you promised?" Camilla's voice shrieked, shattering the elegant atmosphere in an instant. Shocked stares from partners and guests alike fell on Brandon, the man who just moments ago had exuded such unwavering confidence. Now he was frozen, his face ashen. "Camilla, please go outside right now. Don't make a scene. I'll explain," Brandon stammered, his voice laced with desperation. Camilla sneered, stepping fully into the center of the hall, holding up an expensive necklace, the very one Brandon had bought her with his client's money. "Explain. Explain right here in front of them. You said you'd take me to Costa Rica, didn't you? Said you just needed to get through this dinner to finalize the transfer." The room fell into an utterly deafening silence, heavy with suspicious glances that now turned on Brandon. I gently set down my glass of wine, my eyes meeting those of several senior partners, including Howard Green, the formidable head of an investment fund, who was considering working with Brandon. Howard's face darkened as he deliberately placed his napkin on the table, his gaze piercing the man now utterly exposed. And then, precisely as I had planned, the partners' phones began to vibrate. A stream of emails had gone out simultaneously, containing irrefutable evidence of Brandon's fraudulent transactions, his hidden accounts, and his meticulous escape plan. I glanced at the clock, just as dessert was being served. The individual chocolate mousse cakes were now nothing more than ironic decorations for the spectacular collapse unfolding before our eyes. Brandon desperately tried to regain his usual confident tone. "Everyone, this isn't what she says it is. It's just a personal misunderstanding. I'll take care of it right away." But Howard Green stood up, his voice cold and unwavering. "I think that's enough for tonight, Brandon. We don't do business with anyone who lacks transparency." He then turned to me, his voice surprisingly steady. "Paisley, thank you for the hospitality. A night to remember indeed." Brandon staggered as if punched in the gut. He frantically pulled out his wallet, flipping through credit cards, desperately clinging to the last shred of his dignity. The server leaned down, his voice low, but loud enough for all to hear. "I'm sorry, sir, the card was declined." Brandon fumbled for 2, then 3 more cards, but the result was the same. His face drained of color, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool room. I sat there calmly sipping my water, looking at him as if he were a complete stranger. The dinner he had dreamed would be his grand leap before fleeing had instead become the devastating funeral feast for his career and his meticulously crafted reputation. That very night, after the last guest had awkwardly left the Aurora Heights Club, the lingering air of luxury was replaced by the cold echo of ruin. Brandon, once the man who stood amid the crowd with a smug smile, was now a trembling shadow, pale and wide-eyed, looking at me and the remaining partners as if begging for some impossible way out. But it was too late. Every door he thought he held the keys to had slammed shut one after another. The very next morning, the board of directors at Foster & Lane, the prestigious law firm where Brandon had been a partner, held an emergency meeting. It didn't take them long to decide immediate suspension from all positions, revocation of all company accounts. I received a call from Richard Foster, the firm's founder. Paisley, thank you for providing the evidence. We'll be forwarding the full file to the authorities. This conduct is utterly unacceptable. At the same time, Texas state financial investigators launched their case. They contacted me requesting my help in providing all the data I had painstakingly gathered. The files I had prepared meticulously in advance, organized down to the last detail, were now my contribution to justice. I handed over the hard drive printed documents, emails, and notes with the unwavering resolve of someone who knew she had done the right thing. Brandon had absolutely no way out. The colleagues who once praised him now turned their backs. The law office where he once strode with pride locked its doors to him security, escorting him out like a stranger without a single word of farewell. His desperate calls to friends and former partners were met with unanswered rings or cold, polite rejections. As for Camilla, the woman he had promised a new life in a tropical paradise, she disappeared just as quickly when she realized Brandon was penniless with no glamorous escape plan left. She quietly left the city. The last I heard of her was from a friend she had erased her social media and moved out of Austin. Brandon had lost his final fragile ally. The weeks that followed were a living nightmare for Brandon. Investigators worked tirelessly tracing every fraudulent transaction, summoning witnesses one by one. He was charged with embezzlement, financial fraud, and abusing client trust charges severe enough to utterly bury the career he once flaunted so arrogantly. I vividly remember the morning Brandon was forced to appear in court for the first time. He showed up in an old rumpled suit, looking haggard, his hair streaked with gray after just a few short weeks. There was no smug smile, no confident stride. That man was now just a defeated, lonely figure. When his eyes met mine where I sat quietly in the back row, I saw nothing but deep regret and utter despair. But it was far too late to save anything. Brandon's family turned their backs too. His parents, once so proud of their esteemed lawyer son, now avoided mentioning his name at family gatherings. His sister, who used to seek his legal help, cut off contact entirely afraid of being dragged into the unfolding scandal. Brandon hadn't just lost his career, he'd lost his honor and his family ties. Each night as I sat by the window of the house, I kept after the divorce gazing at the city lights, I felt no triumph. Only a profound sense of relief that justice had finally been served, the truth revealed, and my years of quiet effort no longer trampled underfoot. Brandon became just a name in exposés about financial scandal, a cautionary tale to the legal community that once admired him. And I, the woman once dismissed as the one behind the scenes, had stepped into the light, needing no one to lead the way. That autumn morning, as the first sunlight streamed through my office curtains, I sat at my desk and signed the final divorce paper. My new name was printed boldly, Paisley Monroe. After more than a decade bearing the last name of the man who once meant the world to me, I had officially reclaimed myself. Free, whole, and stronger than ever. I kept the house not as a trophy, but as living proof of what I had overcome and preserved through my own unwavering strength. In the days that followed, I didn't rush to savor the feeling of victory. I knew I needed to begin a new chapter, not just to affirm my worth, but to truly transform the pain into powerful motivation. One evening, at a small, elegant gathering hosted by Margaret Green, wife of Howard Green, at their beautiful home, I found my answer. Margaret, along with Linda Foster and Susan Lane women, who had quietly stood behind major legal partners for years, welcomed me with warm, encouraging eyes. When they heard me share my idea of starting a financial consulting and investigation firm, they didn't hesitate to offer their enthusiastic support. Paisley, it's time your incredible skills were recognized in the right place, Margaret said sincerely. We'll introduce you to the people who truly need your help. Those words ignited a fierce fire of determination within me. And so Monroe Financial Forensics was born. A small, inviting office on the third floor of a historic building in downtown Austin. The nameplate was neatly mounted by the door, Monroe Financial Forensics Fraud Analysis, Value Protection. I remember the profound feeling that first morning walking into the office, sunlight streaming through the glass, illuminating the whiteboard I had hung myself already covered in plans and ambitious goals. My very first client was a mid-sized law firm, a former partner of Foster and Lane, suspicious that a fund manager was committing fraud. Thanks to the invaluable introductions from Margaret, Linda, and Susan Moore, cases began to come my way. Small businesses seeking internal audits, attorneys needing precise evidence to defend clients in complex financial disputes. I worked day and night drawing fully on my extensive accounting experience and the sharp data investigation skills, honed over years of quiet observation. Every case I completed left an indelible impression of precision and dedication. Former partners who once knew me only as Brandon Carter's wife now saw me entirely differently with newfound respect and unwavering trust. One morning, as I set my coffee on the desk, the receptionist brought in a stunning bouquet of fresh flowers. The small card read, Paisley, at last, recognition belongs to the one who truly deserves it, Richard Foster. I smiled, feeling a deep, quiet pride that needed no external display. It didn't stop there. I, along with other women who had once been quietly overshadowed like me, began building a powerful support network. We organized discreet gatherings for women in law and finance safe spaces where they could speak up about the injustices they had faced and work together to affirm their immense value in a world that too often favored men. I was no longer a shadow beside a successful man. I had stepped boldly into the light with a thriving career. I built myself with restored dignity, with the unwavering belief that sincerity, intelligence, and courage in a woman are never small things. And as I stood by the office window looking out at the city's brilliant, bustling lights, I knew with every fiber of my being that my journey of rebirth had truly begun. I still remember that crisp autumn afternoon, standing in my own office at Monroe Financial Forensics. Looking through the wide glass window at the busy avenue in downtown Austin, a light breeze drifted in through the cracked window, carrying the familiar, comforting scent of fall. A new person, a new journey, and a truth undeniably revealed. I didn't need anyone to protect or lead me. I was strong enough to save myself. Looking back, I had been the devoted wife beside Brandon, sacrificing my time, my potential career, and my personal dreams to stand behind him. I thought it was love, responsibility, duty. But in reality, it was a subtle trap I had unwittingly set for myself, a trap called living for someone else. Brandon had once been everything to me, but when the truth finally came out when his perfect mask fell, I realized the most precious thing wasn't holding on to a false family. It was holding on to myself. The road I traveled wasn't lined with roses. It was paved with sleepless nights filled with cold, precise calculation, with clenched fists as I watched the man who once called me darling reveal his profound betrayal. There were moments torn between raw anger and necessary reason, but those trials made me stronger, pushing me to stand up for justice and meticulously protect what I had built. I learned that intelligence is the greatest weapon. Brandon thought he could outwit me with sweet words, with an elaborate escape plan he believed I'd never uncover. Yet I, the one who quietly managed the family's accounts, the one he saw merely as support, was the one who turned the entire game upside down with my sharp mind and unwavering persistence. I didn't need noise or a dramatic confrontation, just thorough, relentless preparation, step by step, piece by piece, until Brandon was left with absolutely no way out. That journey also taught me that true strength isn't the absence of fear, it's facing fear and refusing to let it consume you. There were nights I lay on the bed that once held our shared joys and sorrows, listening to the wind at the window, feeling an agonizing emptiness, fearing loneliness, gossip, pity. But I overcame it all because I knew with absolute certainty that if I didn't save myself, no one would. In my weakest moments, I found my greatest strength. The day I opened the doors to Monroe Financial Forensics, I wasn't just opening a business. I was opening a brand new chapter where I could truly live as myself. Do work I loved, and most importantly, look in the mirror without feeling like a shadow. The heartfelt thanks from clients, the genuine respect from partners, the acknowledgement from the legal community. They were the resounding answer to the question I once asked myself, where is my worth now? When I meet women who are still trapped in roles they don't want, who feel buried under so-called duty, I always want to tell them, don't wait for someone to save you. Only you can save your life, because no one knows you better than you, and no one loves you more than you can love yourself. I don't need flowery promises or fake applause. I only need the profound peace of knowing I've lived right, chosen well, and never ever let go of myself. And when night falls on the city, the lights in my small office still shining brightly, I know the journey has never stopped. Every day I continue on, fueled by intellect, courage, and a heart that no longer fears. From a silent wife living in the shadow of a successful husband, I, Paisley Monroe, stepped decisively into the light through my own mind and strength. That journey not only exposed a traitor and fiercely protected my worth, but it also opened a brand new path, becoming an independent woman, building a fulfilling career with my own hands and mind. Today, I am no longer defined by the past or by anyone else, but by me, strong, free, and confident in the future ahead. Valuable lesson. This story powerfully illustrates that true strength often lies in quiet observation, meticulous planning, and unwavering self-reliance. Paisley didn't react with immediate emotional outbursts, but strategically gathered irrefutable evidence, leveraging her skills to reclaim her life and expose deceit. Her journey teaches us that even in the face of profound betrayal, our intellect and resilience can empower us to not only overcome adversity, but also to forge a new, stronger identity and purpose. What do you think about Paisley's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful and inspiring stories about family resilience and personal triumph.